Welcome to the Franklin County NC podcast. I'm James Hicks, and this is a podcast about Franklin County, North Carolina. And on our broadcast, we hope you will learn a few things you didn't know about Franklin County, North Carolina, plus some helpful tips for you in your daily lives. Today, I'm joined by Mary Jo Van Horne, who is the District Administrator for District 11 in the Guardian Ad Litem program with the North Carolina court system. We're going to learn a little bit more about what this program does and a little bit more about Mary Jo Van Horne as we go along. So welcome to the podcast, Mary Jo. How are you doing?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let me, before we get into it, and I can probably throw in a little bit about how I learned about this program and all that as we go along. But as for those that may not know you, let's sort of introduce them to where are you from originally?
Very originally, Northeast Ohio.
Okay.
Grew up there and wisely moved to this area right after college. And it has been my adult home since 1985. Okay.
Not going to comment on what 1985 means to me, but you could probably guess that. So where did you Ohio, you've been here since 1985, but where'd you go to school at?
I went to school in Ohio and went to Youngstown State University, got my degree in social work. Knew I was moving to North Carolina. My dad had transferred, and I came down for spring break and just fell in love with this state. And so knew I was coming and looked for a place to put my social work degree to work and found that at what at the time was VGFW Community Mental Health. Vance, Granville, Franklin, and Horne.
Okay.
And it was the Mental Health Authority at the time. We did community mental health. The main office was in Vance County. I lived in Lewisburg, and my first job was facilitating involuntary commitments. So I got to see the hospitals that we had, and Lewisburg had one at that time. We know we went for a while without one, as well as Mariah Parham and Granville Medical Center.
Okay. And so you basically landed in this part of the state coming down from Ohio. No, you didn't.
I did.
You didn't land in Western North Carolina for a little while or anything?
No, my family settled outside of Charlotte. My dad and my siblings, my mom. But this is where I was hired, and this is where it became home for me. I know the four counties. Really got to know them very, very well. My adult life has been here.
Okay. And so how long did you work for? I'm not going to try to say the acronym again, but
the name changed over
yeah.
time anyways. I worked for them from 1985 until 2004. Had a variety of different roles, but then I had started volunteering with the program, with the Guardian Ad Litem program, and had done that for a year. And then in November 2004, was incredibly fortunate to be hired as the district administrator for the program, and that's where I've been ever since.
So you're coming up on a 20-year anniversary of being district administrator. Okay. Explain, since we're now to the district administrator part, what does a district administrator do in the Guardian Ad Litem program?
Sure. In North Carolina, the Guardian Ad Litem program is in all 100 counties, and we're divided by judicial districts. And each of those districts has some staff. So I am in charge of the staff and the program within the 5-county judicial district. So my tasks include, of course, the managing and sometimes hiring of the 3 additional full-time staff, managing the contracts for the attorney advocates. But some of the biggest parts are really the recruitment and the support of Guardian Ad Litem volunteers. And additionally, of course, there's administrative tasks that come along with that, as far as keeping reports, giving information to the public, being part of different meetings throughout the district, and I directly manage cases within Franklin. No, I take that back. I don't manage cases. I supervise volunteers who are responsible for cases in Franklin and Horne County.
Okay. And you're based here in Franklin County.
I am. My office is right in the Hobgood Annex.
Yep. And the district is, because I know we have a lot of different groups. We have a COG. We have groupings of counties. What is the District 11? What are those counties?
Sure. The Judicial District 11 is Franklin, Granville, Person, Vance, and Warren counties.
Okay. So that's a nice little grouping of those. And that's all our COG counties, I think, too, for the Carteret region. Okay. I know sometimes the different groupings, they kind of go off of what, some of those are, but that's good that they stay pretty close together. And the Guardian Ad Litem, do they have offices in all the counties? You got three full-timers, but where are they located?
Sure. I have 3 full-timers. We have a GAL supervisor in Person County. We have an office in that courthouse. Mm-hmm. We have a GAL supervisor in Granville County. We have an office not in the courthouse, but we are right across from the courthouse in Oxford. Mm-hmm. We also have a satellite office that is not staffed in the Vance County Courthouse. That is used very part-time because we do have court sessions there. We don't have a physical office in Warren County, but I have a very good relationship with our clerks and district attorneys and can always find space there.
And that's part of your territory a little bit too.
Correct.
So yeah. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about what you do and the areas and things, but what is the Guardian Ad Litem program?
The Guardian Ad Litem program is this well-kept secret in North Carolina. It's been around since 1983. We were created in 1983. The North Carolina General Assembly established the Guardian Ad Litem program within the Office of the Courts, Administrative Office of the Courts. And if anybody wants to look that general statute up, that's 7B 1200 for you. Okay. So that is how we came to be in 1983.
1983. Wow. And so what does the program do? What is the purpose of the program?
Sure. The mission of our program is to be a voice for the children in the community. The elements of that are volunteers are trained as child advocates for abused and neglected children. Child advocates and attorneys work together to champion children's needs in court. And then child advocates promote a safe and permanent home for children.
Okay.
You want to know how we get involved?
Well, let me go back to ask. So we're dealing with the court system. So there's usually some sort of a court action taking place that I guess you come into, maybe?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And is that in Superior Court or District Court?
District Court.
Okay. It's in District Court. You're looking at obviously dealing with children. And that's mainly children. And do you do anything other than children? Okay,
no,
I didn't.
Children, they can be 18. They are from the time they're born, and that happens sometimes up until their 18th birthday. Okay, that is how the statute has defined our role.
And you probably work a decent amount with social services through some of these cases, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's actually how our work begins, is when they file a petition in court alleging abuse or neglect for children.
Okay. And so, you talked about your Guardian Ad Litems. Do you have paid Guardian Ad Litems, or are they all volunteer?
All volunteer.
Do you know how many Guardian Ad Litem volunteers you have or typically have, or what does that look like number-wise?
Well, within our district right now, we have 95. Okay. This is a great time to do this. I did some monthly stat work recently. And here in Franklin County, because I know we're talking about Franklin, we have 19 right now. We're serving 55 children in Franklin through our program at this time.
Okay. Do we typically, because of our size and population, we're probably going to have a little bit more cases just by the nature of population numbers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. The heaviest counties I have are, and it's interesting because they're the ones that are furthest apart, are Person County and Franklin County. Okay.
So how do people, I guess we can go into, how do you develop the volunteers for the Guardian Ad Litem program? What do you look for?
First, I look for people who have an interest in children. You've got to have that. And from there, then they have to fill out an application. And the process, it's a journey to become an advocate. And not everyone who looks into this is going to be accepted or will decide that this is what they want to do. Mm-hmm. So I love the conversations about it. We have some minimum standards that they have to be able to complete. You cannot have any felony charges. Mm-hmm. You can't have a case with social services. You need to be at least 18 years old to volunteer with us. And you need to be an individual who's wants the best for families, mm-hmm. and definitely the best for children. Mm-hmm. And then we go from there.
Okay. And I guess if you're selected into the program as a volunteer, I guess there's some training that people go through, I would assume.
Oh, absolutely. That is key. To be a guardian ad litem, like I said, you have to be 18 years old. You have to be willing to go through an extensive screening because we work with children. Mm-hmm. We're going to do your criminal background check. We're going to do your reference check. We're going to have a structured interview with questions on that. And then from there, if you were still willing, mm-hmm. and we were willing, then we proceed to training. We offer free interactive training. It takes about 30 hours to complete. And because we're a 5-county district, James, we're doing this virtually mm-hmm. on that. So you also have to have some comfort with technology. Mm-hmm. Even though I went to school for social work, I've become a great coach, and mm-hmm. we can help people with those challenges. But most everyone does. But we train virtually. It is a combination training. We call it flex, in that there's work you're going to do independently, interacting online with your other classmates, and then once a week for roughly 2.5 hours, we do live virtual trainings where we reinforce that. There are 6 of those mm-hmm. sessions, and that's the course of 6 weeks. You're going to complete 30 hours of training. You're also going to come and observe court in one of our counties, because it's one thing to work case studies and answer questions and get some practical skills while you're training. It's another thing when you walk in a courtroom, especially if you've never done that. Mm-hmm. And even now, all these years later, if court's in session, my own heart has a little extra bump to it when I go into a courtroom, because you never know what's going to happen. So we want people to come into court, sit down, find out where people sit, who people are, generally get an idea of how things go. Mm-hmm. And then after all of that is completed, what happens is a judge administers an oath. You take an oath to be a guardian ad litem. There are expectations that you are going to fulfill your responsibilities. You're going to maintain the utmost confidentiality mm-hmm. and be there for the best interests of the children. Mm-hmm.
And so once you get sworn in, you take your oath, you've been trained. What happens when, I guess, a case is assigned and I guess you would call up the person and say, you're up. What happens then? What kind of things do guardian ad litems do?
Sure. Well, that's another part of, I want to add, as part of training and part of interviewing, is we get to know you. Mm-hmm. We get to know what kind of time schedules you have that you can work with. We also pay attention to what people are interested in. Some people are interested in certain types of cases, like they want babies or they only want teenagers. And so we've always got that in our head, any of the staff people do, when we're thinking about it. So when we call you up, we're going to say, hey, James, Franklin County Social Services filed a new petition today for 3 children. And we're going to tell you a little bit about the circumstances. That this is a neglect petition. It involves 3 children, ages 10, 9, and 7. They happen to be in the department's legal custody. They're the legal guardian for them now, but they're living with their great aunt Sarah out in Bunn. We'll give you a little information about them. We'll tell them the circumstances on what qualified as neglect. We tell them when the first court date is that's coming up, and we check to see if there's a conflict of interest. Because if you're related in any way or you're just too involved, that wouldn't be good you want to be fair and objective, and we'd move on to someone else. But say that all that passed, then the next step would be, all right, you say yes, I go to one of our judges, we get the appointment order done, the court appointment order done. From there, you would get a copy of that petition, so you could start to see what has happened, who's involved, names, as well as start forming your plan on what you're going to do, because you can talk to everyone. We want you to see the children. Expectation is you should see those children once a month. We're not a mentor, we're not a tutor, but you want to have a relationship with them. So you have to see the child. You will talk with their social workers. You're going to talk to their parents. You're going to talk to their teachers. You're going to talk to medical providers, maybe mental health providers, which kind of was how I learned about who guardians ad litem were. And you're going to take all of this information in. You're going to have support of a supervisor while you do this, because our method of we don't just hand you this information and say, all right, James, off you go. At the beginning, we're going to give you some direction on things. We're going to say, hey, have you talked to social worker so-and-so? And give you some guides on what to do. And gradually, as you gain experience, you become more autonomous with this. Once you've done all your interviews, once you have read documents, because that's the other thing, and that's another reason we talk about confidentiality so much, is you have access to everything. And talk about, you're entrusted with that information. And you have to take all of this information, put it into your thoughts. We have court report templates. Guardians ad litem write court reports. The templates are great because that helps you kind of frame what you should be researching, what you should be thinking about, and you write this in terms of what the current what's going on, what the current needs are, what is happening in terms of progress, as well as what recommendations are going to be. You make recommendations. We call them best interest recommendations related to that child. Example is an area of, say the Department of Social Services does have custody of the child. One of your recommendations may be that the department continues to have custody of that child. It may be that you think that someone else should have custody of that. Because you've done the research and you're looking at this, that would be one. We make recommendations regarding visitation, family time, in terms of if we find that there's some unmet needs for children, because we are talking with everyone, that does this child need some extra education supports? Maybe they need new glasses, whatever it is. But there's an important statement in every report that if it's not there, the supervisor for that case is going to call you about. We call it the expressed wishes of the child. And there's different ways to phrase it based upon the age of the child. But essentially it comes down to, the way I ask it most of the time is, we've talked about court, I've explained to you what happens. What is something you want to make sure the judge knows? And whatever that statement is, whether it be, I want to go home to my mom, or I need new red tennis shoes. Whatever they're saying, we put that in there. In North Carolina, we operate from best interest, but it's also important that we include expressed wishes of the children. And in the courtroom, we are one table. Quite literally, one table, where the guardian ad litem volunteer, the attorney advocate are seated. The Department of Social Services has their lawyer and their table. Another table has the parents and their attorneys. We are all equal parties in the case. So our recommendations are presented orally by our attorney advocate, and the written report is our evidence that goes into court. The judge has to take that all into account, and the judge creates the order based upon all that he hears from all the parties in the case.
Mm-hmm. So it's for people who are trying to figure out, what kind of role does this play? Is you're not really the investigator. That's DSS's role, to be the investigator and to bring any type of thing. But the guardian ad litem is more of almost like an independent expert into the situation. Someone who can go in and expert might not be the word, but someone who can go in and independently look at it, not looking from either side, and say, "This is what I think." Based on my training and experience, these are my observations, and give that sort of unbiased testimony to the judge to kind of be that, you're not on one side or the other. You're just giving those observations. Does that sound about right?
Kind of close,
because
we are the children's advocates.
Yeah.
So everything comes from that vantage point.
Yes.
For us, we get to speak solely from that perspective of it. Whereas the Department of Social Services, they have many more responsibilities because they are the legal guardian. We never sign any legal paperwork for children. For us, guardian ad litem stands for guardian of the case. Mm-hmm. So we're watching that process, and we're timekeepers. Mm-hmm. If people forget how quickly children grow, mm-hmm. and 2 months doesn't seem very long to us. But if you're only 7, mm-hmm. and law enforcement and a social worker came and they took you to this stranger's house, and you got new school and you've got new this and new that, mm-hmm. 2 months is a really long time. Yeah. So if in court they're saying, well, we could continue this out several months, we're going, no, excuse me, we'd rather, we put forth our own recommendation. And it's about expediency to the extent possible.
Yeah. We'll say an independent expert into the child's well-being, maybe, for the case. So, yeah, it's one of those things that, it is a little tricky when you think about it because, some people you're not a social worker per se, and you're not, these other things, but you're really you're looking after the well-being of the child in this case. And so, that's sort of I think that's something that probably people maybe get a little misconception about, like that you're going in as the social worker and investigating and bringing the charges. No. There's a whole department for that. This is just based on the child's well-being.
Yeah, and our people come from every walk of life. And in terms of the advocates that we have, as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about this, going, this is great, how diverse our groups are in terms of, we have some people who are retired, we have some people who work, we have people who work in real estate, we have people who have been parents and they know a lot about children based on their experience parenting. I have a fitness coach that's with us who I probably need to spend more time with. We have someone who works with a funeral home, and as well as customer service, you name it. Mm-hmm. It's a diverse background, and that brings a whole different perspective into it versus like when I worked for mental health. I was coming at it solely as the mental health clinician and what I was looking at. It's much broader when we invite people in to be part of this.
So, and you've got a broad swath of different types of professions and people. What is because people are probably thinking, well, I might could get involved in, not to scare people off, but what is I would say the expectation of the time commitment for the program? Because, some people might say, wow, that sounds like a lot. I couldn't do that, but maybe it's not.
And it varies.
Mm-hmm.
What I tell people, when you first get involved, because you've got a lot to learn, it's going to take a good 10 hours or so, maybe a little more each at the beginning of your month, not your week. If it's taking that much of your week, we need to have a conversation. But then as you have made your acquaintances and you have met the parties and you have that, it can vary about 6 to 10 hours a month. When cases are really in I'll call it more of a quiet period where everything's been ordered. Sometimes it just takes a while. If you're a parent, you're ordered to have substance abuse treatment. It isn't as though you go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, treatment done. It can take a little while. So there's some months that are given where things are quieter, and you may only be working on your guardian ad litem case about 4 hours a month. So there's not a hard and set.
Is it one case per person throughout the case, or is there like multiple, I don't know, stacking of cases or anything like that?
When people come and volunteer in this district, especially if they're supervised by me, you have one case. And it is, when we say a case, it might have one child, it might have more. But we want you to have a good experience as a volunteer. When we give our time, we come into this to do for others. We want to serve others. But at the same time, there's got to be a little something in it that works for us. And if you walk in the door and I say, well, I've got 6 cases with 8 to 10 children, and I want you to have them, there's a few folks who will come in and say, yeah, bring it. But most are not. I really value time. I will say this, since I have been a district administrator with a lot of volunteer management now, I'm a far better volunteer. I'm better at saying no. I'm better at setting limits versus somebody saying, oh, come on, Mary Jo, you know you can do this. It's like, I want to give my all or not do it. And that's what I talk about with advocates that come in the door with us as well, is going, I want to respect the time that you have. I want to make this work for both for you as well as meeting our goal of getting children to safe and permanent homes in the best way possible, time possible. Yep,
absolutely. So, and I was just thinking about this too. I'm going to go on this one. So I work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Is it even possible for me to be able to do this program? I mean, is it going to require all the stuff takes place during 8 to 5, or does this things happen after? How does that work for people who volunteer?
There is a lot of 8 to 5.
Okay,
and that's part of that case assignment. We look at the cases and what's happening. But as far as you can gather documents to review anytime. Do that on your own time. You can arrange your visits with the children anytime that works. Contacting your social worker, sometimes that's a little harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mental health clinicians, teachers.
Yeah.
But we provide you with an NCGAL volunteer email account, so your official email business, your official guardian ad litem business, is contained to that. And it also helps when someone's opening that to read it. So you can email with parties on cases. Some do text, but there are ways of working around it. I have a number of 8 to 5ers that when there's a meeting, they may change their lunch hour, or they may try to get a meeting scheduled early in the morning or later in the afternoon. And that's something that we have to remind guardians ad litem. They can ask for that. As saying, "Ooh, I can't do that. Is there any?" We want the ownership of the case is with the person that it's appointed to. But there have been occasions where I have covered a meeting for somebody. And I don't make decisions. I want to be really clear. When I go in, I'm a note taker and a question asker. If an advocate tells me a position they're holding, that's what I'm going to present. Because that's what happens here. It's their case. So you have staff support, but 8 to 5, sometimes it is a challenge. But again, we do look at the type of case that can be assigned to.
But what I'm getting from you, though, is that if you do work an 8 to 5 job, it is not entirely impossible. There are some avenues and opportunities and y'all obviously work with people on that availability, as best you can.
Correct.
So if you're out there and you have the traditional hours, don't rule yourself out. There could be an avenue here for you to get involved.
And if your company has community service. I'm a state employee, and we have 24 hours of service hours every year. This qualifies for that. Check with that. If sometimes I've written letters for employers, and employers are great about it. So there are avenues. Where there's a will, most of the time there's a way.
So you said, generally speaking, you're going to work on one case at a time. How does caseload, it depends on the times, whatever. What's a typical caseload over a year, like for a volunteer, potentially? That's probably kind of a wild question to ask.
That's a wild question to ask because it really depends on the case. We have some cases that resolve in a couple months, and we have some that take 2 years. We have some outliers that go beyond that. And so we're going to, if you have a couple of those where parents took it, I'll talk like this. If the parents took that bucket of ice water of, oh my goodness, this has happened, we're standing in court, and they get on board and some decisions are made and they're moving along, you may have two cases in a year. Rare occasion, you might have 3, but they would all like that. But more typically, it's one. It's for a year. I have some advocates who will take more than one, but you're not going to get me to agree to that until you've been doing it at least 6 months, because I don't want anybody overwhelmed, and we want the best service for our children.
Absolutely, and some people will be able to take on more capacity sometimes,
Correct.
but yeah, so it's not, it's not one of those things where you volunteer and you're like, okay, they're loading me up with all these cases, and I just finished one, I took a breath, and no, they want me to do another one, and I'm doing 30 a year or something like that. It's not really. It's if you step back, the amount of time commitment isn't as big as you would think that it would be.
Correct. And I always say, people, you're in charge as the volunteer. You have veto power. You can say no. It's not like the social workers where the supervisors walk down the hall and say, you have a new case.
So, and the way we, I guess we can go to, you get to talk to different groups to try to encourage people to volunteer. I know we met during Leadership Franklin, which is a program by the Greater Franklin County Chamber of Commerce that goes on every year on County Day. I come in my first year, 2022, I was in the class and I planned the day for the counties. So, and then we got another one coming up this year, which will be stopping at Guardian Litem as well. But do you get out to other things where people might see you out and about trying to get volunteers?
We do. COVID slowed us down a little bit, but we did. It was a lot of fun going to some organizations, virtual meetings, and talking about the program. We still do that because we know there still are some who meet virtually, but we also go out and I encourage people, invite us, let us come talk to your group. I've talked to book clubs, I've talked to church groups, I've talked with just about any kind of group you can think of. The other thing is we get invited to be part of events. And that's always great because while a big part of my job is recruiting and bringing people in, making awareness, we're not funded for that. So we need invitations, and if someone has a table at an event and they say, hey, do you want to share this or you want to be part of this, if they can waive a registration fee for us, we're on it.
So we might see you out and about talking with people about volunteering in our 5-county area. Five county area. So this is it's a very important program, and I assume that you don't have a cap on volunteers. You got 95. So if you hit 100, you have to stop. No, you can always have more volunteers, right?
Well, and especially here in Franklin right now, I am running at a real deficit. We have I have 23 children in need of volunteers right now. And that's the other thing is I may have volunteers, but we're all people and things may be going on in your life and you need to take a little break. And that's kind of that where you're in control. Inside my heart, I'm going, but why? But really want to respect that. So having my ideal numbers would be that we have every case has one volunteer that if your case wraps up, you're not going to have to go, I'm going to ignore Mary Jo's phone calls for a week or two because I know she's going to have another. So to build a little depth on the bench would always be nice as well for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do people get involved? How could people, well, first, if they have more questions or they want to learn more about potentially volunteering for a Guardian Ad Litem program, what do they do?
There's several things they can do. They can always call our office, and that number is 919-497-4244. And that's the central office. If someone is more interested in another county, I will connect them with that county. We know that a lot of people want to look into things before they make any decisions, so they can always look at our state program website, which is volunteer4gal.org. And as I said, they can call. We also, if you're someone where you're going, well, I need a little more than that, I want to email them, we also have email, which is gal.dist11@nccourts.org. There are also ways people can help us if you're going, oh, I can't do this, my heart's going to be too drawn in, it's going to be too taxing. I'm always looking for there's other ways to support our program. And those include, we mentioned one, invite us. If you're thinking, well, maybe so-and-so would do this. Blue Collie is a great place to go and have a cup of coffee, or Mason on Main down in Franklinton. We'll meet with you. I'll meet with you and a friend, and we'll talk about this. We ask people, keep an ear out. You know a little bit more about Guardian Ad Litem? Like, not for me, but I know someone who it might be there. It might be there. Might be good for them. You can always, we have a lot of materials we use, branded materials for recruiting. And if you have a place where we can put out some flyers, yard signs, bookmarks, we'd be glad to do that, to share those with you. The other thing is we have a Facebook page. One of the simplest ways people help us is by finding the NC D11 Guardian Ad Litem program page and liking that, following that, and sharing posts, because that people take a lot of time before they volunteer for something. They look at it from a lot of angles. So we have options that if you want to be a volunteer and that's for you, yes, fill out that application. We're going to call you right after you do and get that process rolling. But if you're a little hesitant, think about it some more. Please do, because it can take 3 or 4 passes before you say, okay, I've got to do something. And then if it's really just not what you can do directly with the children, use these other avenues. Help us spread the word, because like I said, we're a little unknown in the world.
Yep. So, well, good. I'm glad we've had time to kind of explain a little bit more about Guardian Ad Litem program, because a lot of people just don't know about it. To give it a little bit more of the local touch of being here in Franklin County and all that. So, like Mary Jo says, if you want to go check out those different resources to find out more about volunteering or how you can help the Guardian Ad Litem program, because they will definitely welcome your help. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's about all the time we have left for today. Franklin County NC Podcast is produced by Franklin County as a public service to better inform and provide timely and relevant information. Tune in for more informative shows about what is happening in Franklin County. Subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform, like or rate the podcast, and share it with your friends and family. To find out more about Franklin County, North Carolina, go to our website at www.franklincountync.gov and sign up for our email newsletter while you are there. For all of us here in Franklin County, I'm James Hicks, and we'll talk to you soon.